I'm very pleased to be here. As you heard very oddly in the intro, my name's Scott. Most people know me as Scottie. I've been in loyalty for about 25 years on and off, so almost as long as Ian. I was one of the leadership team that founded the Avios currency, and I now look after product tech and data for IAG Loyalty. I want to talk to you today about momentum. We've heard a theme running through, a couple of themes I've pulled out of the last day or so. One is that you need momentum to run a loyalty program, and the second one is you need your CFO's approval or you're not going anywhere. So hopefully that will resonate with you, and we'll walk through a little bit of momentum this morning and show you a couple of the ways that technology is helping that. But I don't want you to think because the technology guys on stage, you should all get back on your phones, because that's what usually happens. They let me out of the mushroom compost so I could come and talk to you today about momentum of the business. And most of us are focused on driving our businesses forward, not on what technology is, but what it can do for our business. So let's get into it. I'll just grab the clicker. So firstly, let's talk a little bit about who IAG Loyalty are. IAG Loyalty is part of International Airlines Group, for those of you who don't know, which is the parent company of British Airways, Iberia, Vueling, Aer Lingus, Iberia Express, Level. We manage the currency, the Avios currency, for those airlines. We also help and support our partners, Finnair, who you heard from yesterday, using the Avios currency, and Qatar Airways as well. From a momentum perspective, we're a business that partners with many different sectors. We partner, we have over 151 direct partnerships. We have about 3,000 partners in total, all of which are giving out the Avios currency to their customers for loyalty and allowing their customers to spend on rewarding experiences mainly in the travel sphere, but in slightly smaller micro-burn opportunities as well. You'll hear a little bit about that later from Alex, one of my colleagues who's here, who's going to talk about loyalty too on a panel later. So what sort of stats, what sort of momentum do we have? Over 65 million Avios collectors. The average Avios collector can drive more than 5 times the value than non-members. And interestingly, most people see us as frequent flyer programs, but over 63% of Avios collected are done through everyday spend. So we have quite a bit of momentum. Every 60 minutes, 1,100 flights are redeemed using Avios. 20 million Avios are collected, and every hour, £6 million is spent collecting Avios. So you'd argue we have quite a bit of momentum. Hands up if you've been part of a digital transformation at any point. Yeah, quite a few of us. Yeah, digital transformation was a buzzword a few years ago and is still going on in various different ways in all of our organizations. Those stats are possible, and that momentum was created from the platforms we built and the way that we work primarily. So I'll talk you through that a little bit. When we started the digital transformation, as it was a few years ago, we were a heritage business. We used legacy in-house tech, mostly outsourced, so very different to where we are today. And we couldn't get the momentum we needed. We found that the market was moving much faster than we could adapt to, and we needed to create a different approach. We hadn't signed major partnerships. In 2019, 2018, we hadn't signed a really different major partnership for quite some time. So the 151 that you see there, the majority of which have been changed in the last 5 years. So we had a vision to make sure that we didn't want technology to constrain what the business could do. We wanted to make sure that the business decisions could be strategic decisions, not constrained by how quickly we could get technology out the door. So we adjusted everything. You can see a lot of different things that changed in our business process, and I'm sure a lot of you have been through a lot of these anyway. The ones I want to pull out are 2 different examples. One is that we talked yesterday about getting the CFO on your side. If you've got a business case process that lasts more than a couple of weeks, it's not quick enough to keep momentum. So what we had to do was change the finance process to allow us to run standing teams that could deliver as often as possible. And it's quite key for any program that you're able to do that, because you can get things out the door and in front of customers where you want them much faster. So that's the first thing to call out. The second thing to call out is that there's a mass separation in lots of businesses between IT and the business, and we wanted to break that down. So we joined it all together, and therefore all digital products and all technology came into one team. And we created the multi-skilled teams here that had a certain amount of autonomy to deliver. I'm sure a lot of you have been through this journey. That was the digital transformation journey for us. And I'll talk a little bit about the different guises of that we've seen over the years. but it remains important for momentum, primarily because it creates speed and quality, which are the things that we want to create for the business. We went from about 2 digital products when we started. We were only 5% cloud hosted. I know it's hard to believe, and we had about 35 million API calls. May not be interesting to most of you, but there wasn't much traffic going in and out. There weren't many partnerships integrated, so there wasn't much happening between our data layer, our tech layer, and our front end where the customers interact. We're now at about 40 digital products. We're almost 100% cloud hosted, and there's billions of calls going through from our data calls, our technology services calls, and more importantly, there's many things going out in front of our customers all the time. So we moved from a business that used to release quarterly big bang releases to a business that releases about 6 times a day, and it was a 13,000-fold increase. So you can see the type of momentum we've got from a business perspective, and you've seen that in a lot of the presentations over the last few days. This is what behind the scenes is making that work in our business, which is the technology platform that drives it. Why is that really, really important? Because in early 23, you might argue November 22, the world of AI that had been around for an awful long time suddenly got a user interface that could have mass adoption. Several of you put your hands up earlier and said you're using ChatGPT. But ChatGPT, as many of you know, is just the surface of a part of what AI will do for us. So I want to talk a little bit about that and tell you a bit of a story. This is kind of a map of where we've been on a digital journey. It also looks a little bit like a map of my career, which is a bit scary. We started off by talking to customers mainly through call centers and personal interactions, bricks and mortar and call centers. Then in the late 90s, we had this kind of info web environment where we were trying to get all of our information online and get customers to interact with us through digital channels. We're going sort of late 90s, early 2000s. And then this black dot, which is not just the color scheme of IAG Loyalty, it is actually a tipping point. We had e-commerce, which, as we know, everyone thought at the time it was going to kill bricks and mortar instantly. And it did have an impact over many years on the bricks and mortar and our shop, our physical stores. But it took a long time to do that. And the reason for that was all the money piled in to create it, but it hadn't found its place in the marketplace, and it hadn't found its place as to how customers would use it, what they were comfortable using it for and what they weren't. And over the years, we've seen customers get a lot more comfortable with using digital channels, obviously. And now it's much more prevalent than it was. You then all bought smartphones with the iPhone launch 2007, 2008. The first smartphones really in terms of mass adoption, and everything went viral. We were able to reach customers in many different ways again. Then we had this era around just before COVID time. It kind of started 2012, 2014, and then into COVID, where businesses themselves became more digital. And what I mean by that is the tools that we were adopting became more digital. And that allowed us not only to communicate internally very well, but to communicate with audiences better if you're in retailing or in loyalty. It changed quite a lot. I'd argue the loyalty industry changed quite a lot in 2020. I think businesses realized how big loyalty was. I don't know how many of you saw the headlines in the airline industry, but three of America's biggest carriers were able to borrow money based on their loyalty program to the tune of I think it was about $23 billion that they borrowed against during COVID because of their loyalty program. And that made a splash in the media. It was a big splash in the media. And it changed strategically how people thought about loyalty programs. And it gave more momentum, to my point on momentum earlier. So digital businesses and making your business more digital and creating that momentum, really, really important for running any loyalty program. So where are we heading next? Well, because of AI now having mass adoption and people starting to use it, there are many more ways that are becoming prevalent. You've seen some of them this morning. You'll see more, I'm sure, over the coming 2 months, 3 months. But what's different about the previous cycles that have taken 10, 20 years to happen and this autonomous business one is that the machine is learning itself, and the large language models are learning themselves at the same time. The stats in the market at the moment is that the IQ of the large language models was about 90 at the end of 23. It was about 157 at the end of 24. They believe that within a year, it will surpass human intelligence in terms of what it can perform, how it can perform it. That's not to say there won't be a role for humans. I'm sure we need critical thinking, we need emotional intelligence. There's lots of arguments either way that I'm not going to get into. but it's really important that we understand the astronomical effect that this technological shift is going to have on our businesses. And then you start to get quotes like this, which is more about what we do day to day in the loyalty business and how we do it. And to illustrate the point, I'm going to tell you a little story. How many of you have got children? Oh, lots. That's good. Okay. I have one of those too. And his name's Lucas. And he's 19 years old. So he's firmly Gen Z, right? So Lucas decided he didn't want to work in a corporate. I don't know why. I've never put him off. But he wants to start his own business. So he got into content generation. And all he was doing was piecing together news clips of other content that was doing well and putting them on his channel on YouTube and a little bit on TikTok. And he started to get traction. He was getting 1.2 million views on his content. So really starting to get traction with his content. Until AI started piecing together content for others, and he started to drop off and drop off and drop off until he started to use AIs to do the job for him. So he still runs it as a small passive income, but he's got AIs doing the content curation for him now. So then he decided he was going to repackage retail pieces on Vinted and other places where he could make a bit of money because someone had packaged something badly. He'd take pictures of it, steam it, put it back on there, and it would do pretty well. He went down that route, and then other people started hiring bots to go and look for badly packaged content. And he ended up using AI to do that. So he took his skills, he carries on doing it, uses the AI to do it. Then he moves into his next thing, which is direct shipping. In his direct shipping business, he decided the last two businesses had used AI from the beginning. So he started to use AI to do all the roles that he needed: the marketing, the distribution, the product creation itself, the design, the creation of his website. And he's used about 7 different AI agents to do that. And he now has a business that does direct shipping. So what's the message here? The message is, if you remember the previous slide where we talked about AI not replacing humans, but people who know how to use AI doing that, it's just a call for everyone, whatever role they're in, to understand how AI is going to change your role and how it's going to create momentum for companies. And if you follow that through, you will be part of creating that momentum and be part of the future that AI is going to bring. It's a provocative statement, I know. We're going to have a discussion in a minute, which will help us get there. So modern companies, in my view, are not focused on AI. They're focused on what AI can solve and the productivity AI creates. And I think there's a lot of talk about the efficiency of AI, but I think there's also a lot of revenue opportunities and a lot of customer opportunities to create value with AI that are fairly unexplored at the moment. But it is the next technology shift, and it's certainly something that's going to be very, very prominent in the loyalty industry as we go forward, in my view. What sorts of things can we use it for? There's a multitude of different ways that we can use AI in the business. I'm very interested in the customer interaction side and the enablement of personalized experiences like the ones we've talked about a lot today. And I think there's a lot of great startups starting to come out that are very in this world and can help us as businesses to use AI effectively with our customers. On the flip side, obviously, there are some challenges that we're all working through as businesses too. So how do you set your business up for this? And it comes back to this momentum piece again. You can't just do it on the surface with how you do promotions. You've got to have within your business a decent platform to allow you to do it. You've got to have accurate, accessible data. You need the tooling for your people to use to be able to use it effectively. And then you need people who understand it and are capable of using it. So there's lots of different things to work through in order to get to a place where your business is ready for AI. And I think now we're going to have a panel where I'm going to invite Ian and a few others up on stage to discuss it. Great.